My daughter 22 hid her father's affair for 2 years then. After years of strained communication, betrayal, and heartbreak, my daughter and I tried therapy to mend our relationship. But 4 months later, she quit now, and I've had to accept that sometimes love isn't enough to heal what betrayal and trauma have broken. I, 49 female, had been married to my ex-husband, Hob, 49 male, for 20 years before we finalized our divorce just a few months ago. We had built a life together, 2 kids, a home, memories that spanned decades. I thought we were solid. I thought our history meant something. But everything changed when I found out he had been having an affair, for 2 years. 2 entire years. While I was making dinners, planning holidays, and trying to keep our family glued together, he was living a double life. I felt like a fool. I had given him everything, and he handed my trust back in pieces. But what cut even deeper, what nearly undid me, was learning that our daughter, 22 female, had known. She had known about the affair the whole time and never told me. She covered for him. Lied for him. Hid the truth from me for 2 years. And not just by omission, she actively protected him. That betrayal left a mark I'm not sure will ever fully fade. At the time I found out, she was preparing to leave for college. I chose not to confront her harshly. I simply told her that I knew, that I understood how difficult it must have been, and that I hoped she knew I still loved her. But I never said how much it broke my heart. I kept it all inside, thinking I was doing the right thing for her. After she left, the distance between us slowly grew. It wasn't planned, I didn't make a decision to pull away, but I couldn't bring myself to reach out as much. Every call felt like walking across glass. I missed her, but every conversation carried the weight of what she had done. I needed time. I needed space. I needed to heal from both betrayals. About a year and a half later, I started dating someone new. He's 41, kind, patient, and supportive in a way I hadn't experienced in years. He has a 10-year-old daughter, and recently, we took a trip to Disney for her birthday. It was his treat, he wanted to make it special for her. My son, 17 male, came along, and so did her 2 cousins. It was a family-style vacation, completely focused on giving his daughter a joyful experience. He posted a photo of all of us on social media, just one happy moment from the trip. Smiles, sunshine, nothing more. But my daughter must have seen it, because after that, she went completely silent for over a month. And the truth is, I didn't panic. I didn't feel that ache I used to when she pulled away. I still loved her deeply, but something inside me had shifted. Then, out of nowhere, she called me. She was sobbing, screaming, asking how I could shut her out like this. Accusing me of replacing her with my boyfriend and his daughter. Saying I had chosen a new family over her. Her voice was filled with pain and anger. It was a long time ago. I was a kid. I didn't mean to hurt you, she kept saying. She told me she was terrified back then, scared that if she spoke up, she would tear our family apart. I tried to speak calmly. I told her I loved her. That she was irreplaceable to me. That I had never wanted to shut her out, but that healing takes time, and trust once broken isn't easily restored. But she wouldn't hear it. She kept insisting I should be over it by now. That by not letting her back in fully, I had abandoned her for my new life. As if that wasn't enough, Hob decided to insert himself. He called me later, absolutely furious. He accused me of leaving our daughter behind for a younger man and his kid. He said I was selfish. That I had thrown away our family. The irony of it was staggering, this coming from the man who lied to my face for years, who shattered everything we built, and who is now dating a woman 19 years younger than him. Somehow, I'm the villain in their narrative. What no one seems to understand is that I'm still trying to recover. I am still trying to breathe again after years of emotional damage. Everyone expects me to just forgive and forget. To pretend none of it happened. But I lived through it. I'm still living with it. I don't hate my daughter. I don't want to lose her. But the hurt she helped cause is real. I'm not angry because she was a kid, I'm hurt because even now, she doesn't seem to recognize how deeply it wounded me. She's grieving the closeness we used to have, and so am I. But maybe this is what happens after betrayal. Maybe some things change forever. After everything came out, my son, who lives with me full-time, ended up finding out about his sister's involvement in covering the affair. I had never intended for him to know. I wanted to shield him from that kind of betrayal, especially between siblings. But one day, he overheard a conversation between my ex-husband's mother and sister. They were talking casually, not realizing he was in the next room, and they mentioned how our daughter had helped Hob keep the affair hidden. I still remember the look on his face when he asked me if it was true. I didn't know how to lie. I couldn't deny it. So I told him, carefully and gently, that yes, his sister had known. He was crushed. Not just disappointed, but gutted. They had always been close, had each other's backs, even through the divorce. But this shattered something between them. Since then, they've barely spoken. He doesn't answer her texts, avoids talking about her, and every time I try to bring her up, he shuts down. It breaks my heart to see them so distant. And I hate that my family feels like it's in fragments now, scattered and unsure how to come back together. Meanwhile, I've been going to therapy, trying to unpack all of this pain, trying to understand why it still feels like I'm carrying a weight around my chest every day. My therapist keeps reminding me that trauma isn't linear. Healing doesn't happen in neat, tidy stages. But still, there are moments when I wonder if I'm just failing as a mother, failing to hold my family together, failing to move on. I love my daughter. I always will. But every conversation with her feels like a wound reopening. I don't know if I've built a wall around myself or if I'm just trying to survive the only way I know how. And then, 10 days ago, someone said something that stopped me cold. We were talking about something completely unrelated, and they said, "Life is so fragile. You never know how much time you really have with the people you love." That hit me like a brick. I couldn't stop thinking about it afterward. What if something happened tomorrow? What if I never got the chance to mend this? Would I be okay with where things stood, with the silence, the distance, the pain? The answer, deep in my gut, was no. I wouldn't be okay. So, a few days later, I reached out to my daughter. I told her I wanted to talk, not to fight, not to blame, but to figure out how we could move forward. I said I wasn't interested in digging through the past just to punish each other, but I needed to know if we had a future. She was hesitant. I could hear it in her voice. And honestly, I couldn't blame her. I had been cold. I had pulled away. And I think part of her had stopped hoping I'd ever come back. But we talked. It wasn't easy. There were long pauses, tears on both ends. I asked her, finally, to tell me the truth. I said I needed to hear it from her, not from Hob, not from anyone else. I told her what Hob had said to me after I discovered the affair. How he had claimed she always knew. How he said she had actively helped him hide it, covered for him when he was out with the other woman, lied to me about where he was. He told me that she was his ally through the whole thing. And worst of all, he said she had always disliked me, that she was never really on my side. Those words haunted me. Even when I tried to dismiss them as manipulation, I couldn't help but wonder if there was some truth in them. I didn't want to believe my daughter could feel that way about me. But the fact that she hadn't warned me, hadn't even hinted at anything being wrong, made it hard to trust my own judgment. When I told her what her father had said, she broke down. She swore to me that she never hated me. That she was scared. That she felt like she was caught in the middle and didn't know how to tell me the truth without destroying everything. She admitted to lying, yes, but said it never felt like she was choosing him over me. She thought she was keeping the peace. Protecting me in some twisted way. But the older she got, the more she realized how wrong that was. And by then, she didn't know how to come clean. At first, she was incredibly reluctant to talk about any of it. Her voice was hesitant, guarded, and I could tell she was unsure whether I really wanted to hear what she had to say, or if I'd just end up using it against her. But after sitting in silence for a while, she finally started opening up. She told me that everything really began unraveling for her a few months before she found out about the affair. At the time, she had been going through something I hadn't fully grasped the magnitude of, even back then. She had been involved in a serious disciplinary incident at her high school. She didn't go into every detail, and honestly, I didn't press. I remembered the situation all too well. It had rocked our household at the time. The school had a zero-tolerance policy, and as a result, she was expelled. She ended up having to transfer to a different school and repeat the academic year. It was one of the hardest moments of parenting I'd ever gone through. I was shocked and disappointed, not just in what had happened, but in the choices she had made that led to it. I thought I was doing what a good parent should do. I wanted her to feel the consequences, to learn from it, to take responsibility. So I grounded her. Took away her electronics. Made her earn everything back. It wasn't meant to be cruel, it was meant to be constructive. I didn't want to raise someone who could hurt people and walk away like nothing happened. Her father, though, saw things differently. He undermined me at every turn. Told her I was being too harsh. That she had already been through enough. That what she needed was comfort and grace, not punishment. At the time, I felt like I was being cast as the villain in my own house. He would console her after our arguments, soften the consequences I was trying to hold in place, and paint himself as the safe parent, the one who understood. Looking back now, therapy has helped me recognize the role I played in all of it. I wasn't always gentle. I was hurt. Angry. I let that anger guide how I parented. My tone was short. My patience was thin. I can only imagine how emotionally chaotic our home must have felt to her during that time. I thought I was guiding her, but I may have just been pushing her further away without realizing it. So, when she found out about her father's affair not long after all of this, she was still angry with me. Still smarting from what she saw as harsh treatment. She told me, through tears, that part of her choice to keep the affair a secret was driven by spite. She knew it would hurt me, and that was the point, at least in that moment. It was her way of getting back at me. Of taking control when she felt like I had taken everything else away from her. Hearing that hurt more than I thought it would. But I didn't interrupt her. I wanted the truth, and she was finally trusting me enough to give it. She also said that she had tried, more than once, to convince her father to come clean. That she told him it wasn't right. That I deserved to know. But instead of listening, he shut her down. He told her I was already disappointed in her. That if she told me, it would break me. That I would never look at her the same. And worse, he told her that the family was already hanging by a thread, and she would be the one to tear it all apart if she opened her mouth. She said she felt trapped. Paralyzed by guilt, fear, and confusion. And so she lied. And kept lying. And every time she wanted to come clean, he convinced her to keep the secret a little longer. Until it became her normal. Until the guilt settled in so deep she stopped believing she had a way out. When she finished talking, I sat there for a long time, just taking it in. There was so much to process. I had spent years thinking her silence was simply indifference or betrayal. But now I could see how twisted and complex it all was. I wasn't the only one betrayed. She had been manipulated too. Not excused, but explained. Hearing all of that from her was absolutely heartbreaking. It didn't erase what she had done. It didn't magically undo the silence or the lies or the pain I had carried for so long. But it helped me understand her in a way I hadn't before. It let me see her not as the daughter who betrayed me, but as a young woman who had been manipulated and emotionally cornered by someone she trusted, her father. Knowing now that he pressured her to keep that secret, that he made her feel like she would destroy our family if she told the truth, it made my anger toward him even stronger. It's one thing to be unfaithful as a husband, but to drag your own child into your deception and use her as a shield for your lies? That's a level of selfishness I can't even fully wrap my head around. He didn't just betray me, he failed her as a father. He put her in a position no child should ever be in, and she bore that weight alone for 2 years. And the worst part? He still doesn't seem to understand what he did. He still thinks I'm the one who ruined our family because I chose to move on. He still frames my pain as an inconvenience, something I should have gotten over by now. It's maddening. The truth is, our marriage had been falling apart for a long time. We were distant, disconnected, living more like roommates than partners by the end. Sometimes I wonder if we would have eventually divorced even without the affair. But knowing how it ended, how he involved our daughter, how he made her complicit in his betrayal, has left wounds I don't know how to fully heal. When I told my daughter how her silence had shaken my trust, I was honest but gentle. I wanted her to know how deeply it hurt, but I also wanted her to hear that I still loved her. That I always had, and I always would. I told her I wasn't trying to erase the past, but I did want to start moving forward, slowly, intentionally, together. We agreed to take it one step at a time. I suggested we try online therapy together. She hesitated. She said she didn't know if she was ready to be that open in front of me, that she was afraid of saying the wrong thing or making things worse. But in the end, she agreed. I think she could see that this wasn't about blame or punishment, it was about healing. I wasn't trying to force her into anything. I just wanted us to finally begin the work of reconnecting, not just pretending everything was fine. I also brought up her brother. Their relationship had always been a bit strained, even before all this. He's quieter, more introverted. He keeps his emotions close to his chest. She's emotional, expressive, the type to want to talk everything through. They were never close, but after he found out about her hiding the affair, after overhearing their grandmother and aunt talk about it, he just shut down around her. The hurt in him was quiet but deep. He hadn't confronted her about it, but the silence between them spoke volumes. Even before I had made peace with her, I had tried to gently encourage him to keep his heart open. I didn't want him to carry that resentment forever. But I also didn't want to invalidate his feelings. I knew how much it had hurt me, so how could I ask him to simply forgive and forget? I told him recently that it's okay to feel what he's feeling. That forgiveness doesn't have to be immediate or total. That healing takes time. But I also let him know that, when he's ready, there's space for reconciliation, if he wants it. What's hardest, I think, is that I still don't always know what I'm feeling. There are days where I'm overwhelmed with sadness. Other days I feel stronger, more hopeful. Sometimes I feel like a failure as a mother, for letting the distance between us grow, for not seeing how much pain she was in, for not protecting either of my children from the mess their father and I made. But then I remind myself, I'm still here. I'm trying. I've been doing the best I could with the hand I was dealt. Someone said to me recently that women are often held to impossibly high standards, not just as mothers, but as people. We're expected to forgive instantly, to absorb everyone else's pain, to hold the family together no matter what. I've been thinking about that a lot. I don't think I ever held my daughter to those standards because she's a woman. I think I held her to them because she's mine. Because I expected more from her. Maybe too much. But she's not perfect. Neither am I. We're two imperfect people trying to rebuild something fragile. And I don't have all the answers. I don't even know if I'm doing it right. I'm just trying to move forward, not erase the past, but learn how to live with it. To carry it without letting it carry me. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get to a place where love feels uncomplicated again. 1 month later, and I still didn't know how to begin putting the pieces back together. My relationship with my daughter had always been complicated, but when I found out she had hidden her father's affair from me, something inside me fractured in a way that felt irreparable. It wasn't just the betrayal from my husband that shattered me, it was hers, too. The realization that my own child had known and stayed silent for years, it hit me in a place I didn't even know existed. That kind of betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't explode. It just sat in my chest like a stone and made it hard to breathe for a very long time. But if I'm being honest, things had already started falling apart between us long before the affair came to light. Years ago, when she was still in high school, there was an incident that changed everything. I still remember the day the call came from the school. The words didn't even make sense to me at first. Bullying. Targeted harassment. Expulsion. I remember feeling cold all over. It was like my brain couldn't compute what they were saying about my daughter. But it was real, devastatingly real. She had relentlessly bullied another student online. The kind of bullying that sticks to your skin like oil, the kind that leaves marks long after the bruises fade. I later found out that the girl she targeted had been hospitalized for mental health reasons. That nearly broke me. Because when I was a child, I had been that girl. I had been the one tormented, ridiculed, left sobbing in school bathrooms and dreading the next day. What my daughter did reopened all of those wounds I thought I had locked away. I saw myself in the girl she hurt, and I saw my daughter becoming the kind of person I had feared all my life. So I reacted. Maybe I overreacted. But it came from a place of panic, grief, and something close to desperation. I took away her electronics, cut her off from the very tools she had used to do harm. She was allowed to use a school-monitored laptop only for homework, and even that was under supervision. I installed every kind of parental control, monitored every text and email. I enrolled her in therapy and made her volunteer at shelters and community programs where she could see the impact of cruelty, of isolation, of being on the receiving end of someone else's power trip. But no matter what I did, the fighting between us escalated. She resented me deeply. She thought I was trying to ruin her life when I was just trying to save it. She didn't see the pain that had shaped my reactions. She only saw the restrictions, the rules, the discipline. And I get that now, I really do. She was a teenager, struggling with shame and anger and probably her own confusion. And maybe I wasn't always fair. Maybe I let my past bleed into my parenting more than I should have. But I was terrified of what she was becoming. I was trying to pull her back before she lost herself completely. So, by the time she found out about her father's affair, things between us were already so tense, so fragile, that she didn't feel safe coming to me. And that's the part that haunts me most. When I discovered she had known all along, that she had kept his secret, covered for him, lied to me again and again, I felt like I had failed not just as a wife, but as a mother. She had picked him. She had chosen silence over honesty, him over me. And it crushed me. I didn't confront her. I wanted to scream, cry, demand answers, but every time I saw her, I froze. I couldn't find the words. So instead, I distanced myself. I still showed up for her in all the visible ways. I answered her calls, sent her care packages, made sure she had what she needed. I went to her events, celebrated her milestones, played the part. But inside, I wasn't there. I had pulled back so far emotionally that it was like watching our relationship from the outside in. I couldn't talk to her without remembering what she had done. Every conversation felt like walking through a house that had burned down, familiar, but charred beyond recognition. I hated myself for that. I hated how I withdrew when she probably needed me most. But I couldn't handle being close to her without unraveling. The pain was too raw, too tangled with everything else I hadn't processed. And in some twisted way, I thought I was protecting both of us by staying emotionally removed. But the truth is, I was just lost. I felt like I had no map, no compass. I didn't know how to be the mother she needed while also honoring the parts of myself that had been broken. Every time I looked at her, I saw the child I had raised, the teenager I had tried so hard to save, and the young woman who had betrayed me when I needed her most. It was all so messed up. There's no better way to put it. And even now, after everything we've tried to rebuild, I still carry that weight. I still second-guess myself. Was I too hard on her? Did I push her into her father's arms by being too strict, too cold, too unforgiving? Or was I just doing what any mother would have done, trying to hold on to a daughter who was slipping through my fingers? I don't know. I probably never will. But I do know this, I never stopped loving her. Even in the silence, even in the distance, I loved her with everything I had left. And maybe that love was imperfect, maybe it was tangled in grief and fear and disappointment, but it was real. It is real. Now, after all this time, we were finally in therapy together, mother and daughter, trying to pick up the pieces of something that had been broken for so long. I had hoped this would be a turning point, a way forward. I wasn't naive enough to expect miracles, but I thought maybe, just maybe, if we could sit across from each other with a professional in the room, we could start healing. Start understanding. Start forgiving. The first session was manageable. It was awkward, yes. She barely looked at me at first. I was stiff, unsure of what to say or how much to reveal. But there was civility. We spoke cautiously, like two people circling a fire, afraid to get burned. We didn't get into anything too deep. Just surface-level history and general goals for therapy. I walked away from that first session with cautious hope. I told myself, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can rebuild something. But the second session? The second session felt like being cut open, slowly, while being expected to sit still and smile through it. She spent most of that hour blaming me. Saying I had ruined her childhood. That I had been controlling, overbearing, too harsh. That the punishment after the bullying incident destroyed her life. That I had embarrassed her, shamed her, made her feel unloved. And what cut the deepest was not just the words, but her tone. Cold. Detached. Like I was some stranger who had walked into her life and made it hell. She refused to acknowledge the harm she caused back then. Refused to see the ripple effect her actions had on that other child, on our family, on herself. She said I blew it all out of proportion. That other kids had done worse. That I treated her like a criminal instead of a teenager who made a mistake. I tried to stay calm. I tried not to cry, not to lash out. But inside, I was crumbling. And then she started talking about her father. She spoke about him like he was some flawless, gentle, loving figure who never did anything wrong. As if he hadn't lied to us both, as if he hadn't betrayed our family. She said she had been protecting him. That she kept the secret because she knew how much he meant to me, and she didn't want to see me hurt. I wanted to scream. Do you not see? He manipulated you too. He put you in an impossible position and asked you to carry his lies. He let you lie for him. And you did. But in her mind, I was the villain. The one who overreacted. The one who punished her too harshly. The one who made the house unlivable. He was her savior. I was the tyrant. She didn't see the long nights I spent crying in the bathroom, trying to make sense of what was happening. She didn't see how broken I became after the affair. How much effort I put into showing up for her even when my own heart was in pieces. She didn't see how I stayed, how I swallowed pain over and over so she could have some sense of stability. She didn't see how hard I worked to rebuild myself after the divorce, how many hours I poured into therapy, into books, into quiet introspection. How much I tried to understand where I had gone wrong. I didn't walk into therapy looking to prove I was right. I walked in hoping to make things right, but now, therapy feels like it's undoing everything I've tried so hard to build. It's dragging up old wounds, and I feel like I'm bleeding again. I'm exhausted. Every session leaves me emotionally spent for days. I've started waking up with that familiar tightness in my chest, the kind that comes from grief you thought you already processed. I love her. I love her more than words can ever express. She's my daughter. My baby. My heart. But I feel like no matter what I do, it's never enough. I stretch myself thin trying to meet her where she is, and all I get back is blame and coldness. And I can't help but wonder, why isn't this working? Why does it feel like the harder I try, the further apart we grow? Is it me? Am I truly such a terrible mother? Am I the villain in her story? And if I am, then what was all this for? I look back at all the moments, good and bad, and I ask myself where I went wrong. I wanted to raise a strong, kind, resilient daughter. I wanted her to learn from her mistakes, not be crushed by them. Maybe I was too firm. Maybe I let my own trauma get in the way. But it was never about control. It was about trying to help her be better than I was, better than the people who hurt me. I'm just so tired. Tired of being the only one trying. Tired of tiptoeing around her pain while mine gets ignored. Tired of second-guessing every parenting decision I've ever made. Tired of feeling like I have to apologize for existing. How did we end up here? I wanted a relationship where we could laugh together. Cry together. Be honest, even when it was hard. I wanted a bond built on love and truth, not on secrets, not on resentment. But all I feel now is distance. And I don't know how to cross it. I knew I had made mistakes, God, I knew that. I had played those moments over in my head 1,000 times, trying to figure out where I went wrong, what I could have done differently. There were nights I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, just begging for some kind of clarity. Was this relationship with my daughter truly beyond repair? Was I just holding on to something that no longer existed? I kept wondering if maybe, in the end, she was better off without me. That thought alone gutted me. What hurt the most was that she still refused to see what her father had done, not just to me, but to her too. The way he manipulated her, pulled her into his lies, made her feel responsible for something she never should have carried. She protected him while turning me into the villain in her story. Maybe I had been too harsh, too angry, too emotionally distant. I'll never claim to have been perfect, I wasn't, but I was trying. Every decision I made, even the flawed ones, came from love. From fear. From wanting better for her. But no matter how much I gave, no matter how deeply I bled, it never seemed to be enough. I felt like I was screaming into a void, trying to reach her, only to have my words swallowed up by resentment. I didn't recognize us anymore. And at some point, the pain just became unbearable. I felt like I was falling apart, like I was breaking open from the inside. There were days I couldn't breathe through it. Days where I questioned everything, my choices, my worth, my place in her life. Was I really just someone she hated now? A symbol of everything she couldn't forgive? I was so tired. And then, 4 months later, everything shifted again, quietly, without fanfare. She decided to stop therapy. She told me one afternoon that it wasn't helping. That she didn't want to go anymore. And I could see it in her eyes, she wasn't angry. Just done. Just tired too. I didn't fight her on it. As much as I wanted to scream, "Don't give up on this," I knew the truth, you can't force someone to heal. You can't pull someone into the light if they aren't ready to leave the dark. Trying only made things worse between us. And so, for the first time in a long while, I let go. I let her walk at her own pace, even if that meant walking away from me a little. We still spoke. But it was surface level, weather, work, updates. No big conversations. And strangely, in some ways, that was easier. There were fewer arguments. Less tension. It wasn't the connection I dreamed of having with her, but it was something. A thread. A beginning, maybe. Or maybe just a peaceful plateau. Either way, I accepted it for what it was. I had finally started to understand that you can't truly heal with someone who refuses to take accountability. And maybe I wasn't ready to take full accountability either, not yet. We both had our wounds, and maybe we needed to heal them separately before we could ever try to meet in the middle. Or maybe we never would. I had to learn to be okay with that. To live with that ache. But I also came to understand something else. I didn't have to let that ache consume me. The pain didn't vanish, but it softened. Became quieter. I kept going to therapy. I kept doing the work. And so did she, in her own space. That was something, at least. It gave me hope that time might still do what words couldn't. And while that chapter of my life was still tender, other parts began to bloom. My boyfriend and I decided to move in together. We took our time, made sure it felt right, and it did. It felt like a new beginning, one I could step into without fear. We weren't rushing anything. There was gentleness in our planning, patience in our decisions. We laughed more. We dreamed out loud. And after so much pain, it felt like I was finally allowed to hope again. To build again. And then there was my son. My beautiful, quiet, determined son. He got into his dream college. When the acceptance letter came in, he tried to act calm, but I saw the pride in his eyes. I don't think I've ever cried such happy tears. Watching him grow into the man he's becoming, it's been one of the greatest joys of my life. He's been my anchor through so much of this, even when he didn't realize it. I'm endlessly proud of him. So that's where things ended up. I won't pretend it's all perfect now. It's not. There are still days I feel that sting of loss when I think about my daughter and how far we still are from the closeness I used to hope for. But I've stopped trying to force a healing that isn't ready to happen. My door is open, always. She knows that. I'll be here if and when she's ready. But for now, I'm closing this chapter. Not out of bitterness, not out of defeat, but out of love. Love for myself. Love for what I've survived. Love for the life I'm finally beginning to live again. To anyone who listened, who showed me kindness, who reminded me I wasn't alone, thank you. Truly. Your words helped carry me when I couldn't carry myself. This is my last update. I'm not the same woman I was when this began. I've learned how to keep walking, even with a bruised heart. I've learned that sometimes letting go is the bravest, most loving thing we can do. So here I go, forward. Quietly. Gently. One step at a time.